Good evening, and welcome to Me, My Scotch, and I. I am Obi Spencer, and we are on the Spanglish Sports World Network on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app from either the iOS or Android App Store. The app is free. Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku and Roku sticks, and all smart TVs 2016 and forward.
It's a show with Obi and his rocking hat. If this was the 90s, he would be all that. It's me, my Scotch, and I. Cause Obi is the guy. Obi is the guy.
As always, thank you to Michael Rochelle of the Shade Tree Mechanics for our theme song. Youth and recreational sports are different things to different people. Some parents force their kids in just to get them some activity and vitamin D. Other families believe that sports is a child's best chance to improve their lot in life and are super serious from T-ball through travel ball. As an aside, there are more individual academic scholarships for more dollars than sports scholarships out there. Youth sports are also great tools to teach teamwork, anger management, and deal with failure. The problem is these competing goals and desires can cause stress for coaches, officials, parents, and participants. It's not just youth sports where this happens. You playing rec softball? Are all of your teammates there for the same reason? Do some want to socialize while others want to win? Is this competitive guy taking the game too serious, or are you not serious enough? Amateur sports are supposed to be fun, but isn't winning fun? A child gets older, local rec leagues give way to travel teams in AAU. This allows the better, more competitive kids to group together and play to win. But are you going to sacrifice your chance to play one sport just to remain good enough to start on that travel team on another sport? This comes at a financial cost to parents. Everyone wants a piece of those sports dollars, from swing and shooting coaches to team coaches, to facilities and even refs. Not to mention the sheer cost of travel. These factors all combine to make sports participation less attractive to children and parents. And we have seen a steady decline in youth sports participation over the last 10 years. Here I am on a show talking sports, but I'm telling you this is okay. Almost all these benefits of team sports can be found in other activities. Many of the video games that replace sports require teamwork, as do things like Stage Crew and the Robotics Club. You want your child to learn to win and lose gracefully? Let them join the chess team or debate club. The big concern is, are our children getting the necessary exercise they need? Each of us as parents need to find the things that get our children moving. A Nerf gun war, a family bike ride, or hey, you can play a game of horse. Here today to help us sort out what's happening with youth sports and talking about weighing fun versus competition is Ed Phillip. He is an amateur sports professional who has been coaching and administrating for over 25 years. He was an assistant basketball coach that made the New York State High School Final Four twice and now serves as a senior VP for the YMCA. In addition, he's the father of two children's student athletes, one of who, as a sophomore, is already in her second year on the varsity basketball team. Hi, Ed, and welcome to Me, My Scotch, and I.
Obi, thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Oh, thank you for joining us. So any thoughts on my rambling start there?
Yeah, I mean, listen, you say a lot there, right? Obviously, I'm on the youth sports side. Chess club's not my thing. Wasn't my thing growing up. Isn't my kid's thing. But I fully believe what you said. What we're trying to do as parents is we're trying to raise good, productive adults. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to give them the skills. Some of us grew up using youth sports to get those skills, but some of us have other avenues for doing it. And I think I would agree wholeheartedly with you. We have to find those things for our kids that are going to make them productive adults and give them those life skills.
Yeah, I gotta say, I was planning on having athletic children. Did not work out that way for me. So it was a bit of a shock. I say that just about every week here. My kids and sports are super far apart from each other. So I was nervous. Like, what's going to build teamwork in this kid? And I mentioned some of the things for my oldest that worked out, and my youngest. He takes his video game seriously all of a sudden. So those things are there. First question I'm going to ask you, though, is what exactly is AAU? And how does it compare to the travel teams? For those parents like me who, we didn't end up in the sports world.
Yeah. So AAU, it's a bad word, right? If you're watching ESPN and you hear about college basketball recruiting, right? They got to clean up the AAU. You keep hearing about that, but really what AAU is, the Amateur Athletic Union, which interestingly enough was founded by the YMCA. Well, actually, the YMCA started to run youth basketball in this country after the Y invented it, and then they gave it away to AAU, which, as a YMCA professional, is probably the biggest mistake the YMCA ever made. But that's a whole other story. But it's really super travel basketball, right? So if you think about travel leagues, it's one town competing against another town. Well, AAU takes that to another level. It's club teams competing against other club teams. And so you'll have kids from a variety of communities, could all be from one town, or it could be multiple towns or a county. And then some of these super travel teams, they have kids that they're flying in for these competitions. And then you have AAU tournaments throughout the state. So throughout the state of New Jersey, Connecticut, New York, down south. And then there's regional. Then there's national AAU tournaments, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, you name it. And Obi, when I tell you that they take a convention center, think about the Atlantic City Convention Center, that they have huge mega shows in there. Well, instead, there's 30 basketball courts set up inside this huge conference center with games going on day and night for 5 days. So it's pretty amazing.
So does that mean that if you want to join an AAU team, you have the ability to join any AAU team if that team will take you, as opposed to like when you just joined your, especially in, let's say, Little League Baseball, if you take from another town, all of a sudden you make it a championship and you out.
Yeah, there's no rules, no residency rules. Let's just put it that way, right? And so AAU basketball, and here's why it kind of gets a bad name, I think, in some ways, is 30 years ago, 40 years ago, when I was playing, to play AAU basketball, there was maybe one or two teams around. You had to be really good. We're talking all league kids or better were playing AAU, right? Well, now all you have to do is sign up for AAU and get your AAU. I don't even want to say it's licensing. I don't run an AAU program, but you just have to be certified not even certified. You just have to be a member of AAU. You can start your own program. So there are literally a dime a dozen AAU programs for basketball in this country. And so if your kid's not good enough to make an AAU program, you can start your own if you want. Then you just have to recruit enough kids to play with you. And then they slot them by ages. As long as your kids aren't too old to play in that level, you're good to go.
Wow. So here I was thinking, and before I go on, so if there's a cost, that cost is going to be the same whether you're on a team that's recruiting throughout the country or you're on Joe's team who just wanted a team for his son to play on.
No.
Oh, okay.
No. So the cost for AAU membership is the same, and that may be $50 a year. It's nominal, but the cost to actually play on an AAU team varies greatly. And the variables in that are, where are you practicing, right? So what facility do you have? Are you getting a school for cheap? Are you in a rich community where somebody has a court in their basement? Are you having to rent the local Boys and Girls Club or the Y? And right, so you got to factor that into it, right? Then you got to factor into it, how much does the coach want to get paid? Does the coach want to make money off of this, right? Some coaches are going to volunteer, right? U Sports, volunteer coaches. AAU, not so much. AAU coaches are getting paid. So how much do they want to get paid? Then how many tournaments are we going to go to, right? Tournaments are maybe $450 a team to enter, right? So if we want to go to 3 tournaments or 10 tournaments, and so that all adds up. And so boom, you join a team, they go, okay, it costs $1,500, costs $500, right? It all depends.
Okay. And now this is basketball, a sport where they say you need a flat top, a bin, and a ball, but you're shelling out bucks. Now, if I'm not mistaken, from what you told me, your daughter played AAU, still does.
Yep.
She's a sophomore. She's been playing on the varsity team for 2 years. I got to imagine it wasn't just AAU you were shelling out bucks for to get her to the level where a sophomore is playing on the varsity team.
Well, yeah. So I'm a little bit old school, right? Again, we go back to 30 years ago when you didn't have youth sports didn't look like it does today, right? And so the private coaches, they didn't exist, right? So I'm new to that, right? So I'm navigating, and in the YMCA world, we don't have that either, right? So in the YMCA world, we're not in the ultra competitive. We're on the other end of it, where we're just trying to give kids a taste of what sports are, and then actually they leave the Y to go to these competitive programs, right? Because that's not what we're providing. And so, yes, there. Obi, if I tell you about how many private coaches there are for basketball, there's the same for every other sport. If one isn't working for you, kid, you can find another. They take Venmo and they take cash, and they take the Cash App, right? And you just text them and you get a spot. And some of them are teaching at a park. Some of them got gym time, right? And that also affects the cost, right? And some of them, if you pay up front, you get a discount per session. So, so you got that. There's just a lot going on these days. And then, you talked a little bit about your sports specialization. Is that something you want your kid to do, or is that something your kid wants to do, right? So I think there's a lot of things when you think about youth sports. There are parents that drive their kids to do things, but there's also kids that just have a desire that they love basketball, or they love football, or they love baseball. And with so many travel opportunities, it's tough to play another sport. If you love basketball, AAU basketball starts at the end of March and goes until July 31st. When do you play another sport?
You don't. I mean, and that I know is a big difference between when you and I were growing up. A 3-sports athlete, when I went to high school, was not impressive in that you could play 3 sports. It was meant you liked playing sports, and there was 3 seasons, and you just found the sport you picked each season, and that was it. And there were 3-sport athletes who were seniors who weren't a starter on any of the 3 teams they were in. They just liked playing. And when I talk to parents of kids who are into sports, and your daughter seems to be another example, I'm maybe a 2-sport athlete, but I'm a 1-sport athlete. I've heard pros in tennis, McEnroe, complaining about the youth tennis, that all they do is play tennis. And there are other sports that teach you to balance better than tennis is going to teach you to balance. And then when you bring that balance skill back to tennis, it's going to help. And I know you were saying to me your daughter's looking into joining lacrosse. So is that something that's going to affect her basketball, or are we hoping that it's going to improve her basketball? What is that like for a parent?
Yeah, that I'm happy she's going to do that, and she's going to try it out, and she's never played before. That the great thing is lacrosse and basketball are similar sports. Jim Brown was an All-American lacrosse player, and then he was also a football player. But Dr. James Naismith, who invented basketball, was a lacrosse player from Canada. So that's how basketball is somewhat similar to lacrosse, spacing and things like that. So I think she'll pick it up. But it's so AAU is at the same time as high school lacrosse. So how does that work out? So am I going to be shuttling her picking her up from the high school field and then driving her off to an AAU practice, which might be 30 minutes away? Right. So what does that look like? And so, we didn't even get into parent sacrifices. Right. But so I think it'll be great. I think, the one thing physiologically, and again, no expert on physiology, but you're going to use different muscles, right? And overuse injuries do happen if you use the same muscle group over and over and over. So if you're playing basketball, you're doing the same movements constantly. You mix it up with a different sport, you're using different muscle groups. And I do believe it keeps kids healthier, and it keeps them active, and it gives them another opportunity. And, if you're really focused on one sport, you kind of lose perspective of what it's like to have fun sometimes. And so I think that second sport or the third sport can do that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I know you said your youngest is looking at softball, but I had a friend whose son was a baseball player, and he played 2 seasons of baseball, and he pitched both seasons, and he didn't make it to high school. By the time he got to high school, the arm was just a kid, 10-year-old kid. The arm was not going to throw baseballs anymore. And he did find other sports, fortunately for him, but that's a real problem, overusage.
Yeah, it is. And Obi, it's probably the biggest change in youth sports in the last 25 years, right? Is the multiple seasons. So fall ball didn't exist. You played Little League. Baseball was a spring sport. And then in the fall, you played soccer, or you played football. But now kids can play baseball in the fall. You can also play in the summer. And then out in the Midwest, not so much in the Northeast, but dome ball, right? You can go inside these domes and you can play in the winter.
You're playing baseball every day, 365.
If you want. Or think about all these indoor batting cages that have pitching tunnels, right, and hitting tunnels. You can train year round if you want, and then just go to Dick's Sporting Goods. They got batting cages there that you can get. You can put up in your backyard. You put in your garage, hitting net.
Yeah.
If you want, you can play sports all year round now, which we couldn't. You know, I was a 3-sport athlete in high school and didn't start on any of those teams. You described me to a T. But why did I play 3 sports? Because in the spring, the only sport that was available to me was baseball. In the fall, the only sport that was, I wasn't playing football, it's too small, was soccer, right? So that's why I was playing those sports. I could play basketball year round now.
Absolutely, and you gotta wonder with baseball for those kids who are playing year round. And I know that there are still fast guys entering the major leagues, but when are you working on your speed? I mean, you're really not. I mean, how many kids when we were growing up played baseball, and the fastest kids were also, oh, I noticed they're the fastest kids in soccer, and in soccer they're working on their sprinting, and you know that transfer back and forth that. You know, we're dealing with overuse and muscles that aren't trained with this hyper focus. Let's take it off of kids for a little bit. You are a rec sports guy. I know you said you played softball for 25 years.
Yep.
I don't know if you remember, but you canceled a softball league I was in because the players on that league team were not going to be competitive enough for you. Although I don't think you were hyper competitive in that particular game, but you wanted more focus than what you were getting. So what about that comment when you play softball, or even if it's slow pitch, that some guys are out there to win and hit home runs and other guys are out there just to socialize? After 25 years, how much has your team changed? Has it become more focused on one aspect or the other of competition versus fun?
Yeah. So I think as the saying goes, all boats rise with the tide, or water always finds its own level. I think the same thing happens with your rec sports career as an adult, as you grow older, right? So, well, I'll tell you just it's a funny story to me now, but graduated from college, wanted to play softball, just because as an adult, that's what you could do, right? Play rec softball. So my uncle knew a guy who had a team, and they were looking for players. So I get on this. I was just desperate to get on the team. So thank God I get on the team. I show up the first game. I hit a home run. So that you got to do that, right? Because you want them to ask you back. So you got to play well. So I hit a home run. So it's great. I'm going to get invited back. Now, the other great thing about rec softball is everyone goes out for a beer afterwards, right? So I hit this home run. Everyone says, great job, Ed. Hope you come back next week. And then they all leave. Nobody invites me out for a beer. And so I come home. I'm like, do they really want me to come? They didn't even to the beer, to the bar. Later, the team all met each day. So they all met at Alcoholics Anonymous. I was the guy, the youngest guy. I was the guy who didn't meet them at AA. That's why they didn't invite me out to the bar. They didn't go to the bar.
Yeah, that's it. Absolutely. That is a funny story in hindsight. That's a funny, but those guys are important to have in this world too. So.
Oh no, listen, no harm. So I said to the guy who's a good friend of mine. He's a good friend of mine. He was my uncle's best man who got me on the team. I said to him at the next game, I said, Craig, I thought I did a good job, but nobody invited me out for a beer afterwards. What do I got to do? He goes, Ed, didn't you notice no one had last names in the scorebook? Because we all met at AA.
You're the only one with 2 names in the scorebook.
Yeah. So, but the reason I tell you that story is that was a team of guys who met through another organization, right? Who wanted to be social, and they were athletic and they played softball. They weren't ultra competitive. The next year, I got recruited to play on another team. We took 4 guys from my team who were the better players, and we combined with another team, and we entered the A division of this other league. And that was competitive. I mean, we had a guy running the team, and he's like, listen, we got, I think 12 guys on this team, and you're not going to play if you're not hitting. And that was the rules. And there was nothing, listen, it was fun because you said it in your monologue, winning is fun, but that was ultra competitive. And I did that for, 3 years. And then I found another team that was ultra competitive. But the team I'm on now, I've been with for 15 years, and we're just a bunch of guys that like to play softball. And yeah, we've won the championship, but I think it's a C league. I mean, listen, it is what it is, but right. It gives me an opportunity as a 40-something-year-old man to go out and be competitive and still try to relive my glory days. But but it's been an evolution.
The older you got, the less competitive things got. Part of it was getting old, but
Yeah, I think most of it's getting old. I'll tell you, listen, I had sliding pants. I would slide to break up double plays. I mean, listen, we all know why men life expectancy is lower than women's, right? Because we still think we're 25 years old, right? So
Yes.
I don't slide now. I refuse to slide. I'm not taking an extra base if I'm going to have to slide. It's not worth it because I don't want to get out either, right? So
Right.
I just, a lot of singles, no reason to stretch it into a double if you got to slide.
So let's take this whole conversation from the administrator point of view. Now, you already said that, at the Y, it's a rec. It's super rec. That's what the Y is. What happens when you get somebody in there who's like, oh, this is the Y? I don't care. I've come to dominate on the basketball court or the softball league. Do those things come up to you? Do people go, this guy's destroying the whole league? What is that like?
No, that usually doesn't happen. So where that shows it's, so pick up basketball, Thursday night men's, that regulates itself, right? Here's where that comes into is when you're running youth leagues and you all of a sudden you have the family that the coach says, oh, I need Jimmy and Joey on my team because we carpool. And then the league starts and you realize Jimmy and Joey are the two best athletes in town. And that's why Jimmy and Joey are on the team. They're not carpool. Well, maybe they are carpooling just to keep it up. But,
yeah.
So you got the parents that are trying to win, right? And so what a lot of Ys will do and a lot of rec leagues will do this is they don't make exceptions, right? If you don't live in the same household, there are no requests to be on a team, and you do evaluations, and you don't do old school, I'll say little league evaluations when I was growing up where you have the draft, the best kid gets picked first and set, right? No, with the managers, nope, it's YMCA employees to do the evaluation. And what you're trying to do is make, a 10-team league, all 10 teams tie every game, right? That's what you're trying to do. Never works out that way, of course. And then, it's just, again, it's the same thing. It's self-selection. If parents don't want that experience for their child, they're going to find that league that allows you to put Jimmy and Joey on your team, or they're going to allow you to do the things you want, or then that's when you go into AAU or travel. So that's what's the great thing about so many options today in the youth sports world. Back in the day when there was one option, you were stuck with whatever that option was. But now you can find the right fit for your kid.
Absolutely. I told you my kids were not sports kids, but my son decided one year he was going to try basketball. And of course, the only way he was going to do that was, well, it wasn't I had to be the coach. It was they got all the kids in the room and they said, okay, we can't send you adults home till we get 10 volunteers to be a coach. And so lo and behold, I was a coach. And they do one shot each, a couple of hoops, and we have to draft these kids. And then the kids who didn't show up to draft slowly get randomly put on the team. And he was, this was a time in life when 5'5" was huge for him. And I ended up with the 6 tallest kids in the league because they all signed up late and they just randomly put. We had a very dominant team with a coach who knew nothing about basketball. And it gave me the 6 best athletes and they're all tall.
Yeah.
So I definitely, and that was with drafting, but yeah, that was not a league that really made sure that things were fair. But it was also a league that anyone who went there rooting for their kid to win got laughed. This is not what this league is. This is run up and down the court for half an hour and move on with it.
Yep.
So now we are going to go. No, let's not go there yet. Let's talk about the elephant in the room for about the last year for everything. And I know that you've had some issues with your daughter's team. I'm sure you've had some issues with the Y. Let's talk about the big COVID and how that's affecting sports right now.
Oh, COVID. So it's interesting. As I was waiting to come on tonight, Real Sports was on, and they had a segment on COVID in sports and on whether that's contributing to the spread of coronavirus. So at the Y, listen, the governor comes out with a mandate. It seemed like every other week, when we first got into COVID, and so we're just following the rules, right? But the bottom line is that if you're doing social distancing, if you're doing the right disinfecting, you can do sports safely, right? Especially outdoor sports, right? That's a no-brainer these days. But indoor sports you can do as well, right? So my daughter lives in Connecticut and she's wearing masks to play basketball, right? And it's not fun, but it's better than not playing. And they say that reduces the transmission risk to that of an outdoor sport, right? So they're making it work. Now, unfortunately, a kid on her team just tested positive yesterday, and so they had a game canceled yesterday. And now they're quarantined for 14 days, so they're going to miss the next 4 games. I think they're going to come back and have the last regular season game and then a playoff game, and we'll see what goes from that. So it's frustrating for the kids,
Yeah.
but it can be done safely. I think the kids are taking it seriously, the parents are taking it seriously, but there are risks associated, right? So my daughter's in quarantine. She could actually come down with coronavirus, and then it could be in this house, right? But those are the risks we signed up for. But here's the thing about that, Obi. What you got to weigh, and definitely in our personal situation, is the mental health detriments to not playing versus the physical risks of catching coronavirus. It's the same thing with in-school, in virtual school, right? Is it better mentally for your child to be in school, or is it better for them to be physically? And only a parent can make that decision. I know a 15-year-old girl can't make that decision, and I certainly don't want an administrator making that decision for my child. So yeah, it's just amazing. But I will tell you, as an administrator at the Y, there's a lot of really good protocols in place that we're keeping kids safe, and I am not seeing spread. And we, in my professional life, we serve over 600 kids a day in childcare setting. We're not seeing spread in school. We're seeing coronavirus come into the school because, Jimmy got it at home because Jimmy's dad got it at work, right? Or a staff member's bringing it in and we quarantine, but then we're not getting positive tests after that. So our protocols work, and it's not just Y protocols, right? The protocols that are out there, they're working. We're keeping people safe. So you can go back and do those things, but there is a risk, no doubt.
So now, you worked, or volunteered, I should say, you didn't give me the name, with the New York State Basketball Hall of Fame coach. You went to the Final Four twice. It looked like you got to the finals once. And you had a pretty good athlete on your team, because he was looked at by Jay Wright over at Villanova. And you mentioned maybe even your daughter, they're starting to look at her. So what is that college recruiting process like, from all the perspectives you've got to look at it from?
Yeah, so let me just be right up front, right? My daughter's a sophomore. She has some talent, but Gino Oriema is knocking on my door, right? So there are athletes right now, sophomore year, getting offers, right? There's freshmen getting offers, whether it be basketball, lacrosse, football. It doesn't really matter. I mean, these are talented kids, right? And so my experience with 25 years ago coaching high school basketball, in the player that played for us, he ended up playing Division I basketball. But my experience in that was the coaches come to you, right? The coaches come to the games, they hear about you, maybe they get some film, they call the coach, and that's what happens with the elite athletes, right? But there's this whole other business going on for kids like my daughter, who want to play in college, but aren't jumping off the paper today. And you got to realize there's Division III colleges that they don't give scholarships, but they have spots. Division II colleges that give scholarships, and they actually give more scholarships than Division I. And then you have Division I, right? And you got small Division I schools have to they all have to fill their roster, right? Well, how do they find talent? Well, sometimes talent finds them. And so it's this whole thing of putting together your list, your resume, contacting coaches, sending your tape to them to get on their radar. And Obi, we talked about at the beginning of this about the business of youth sports. Guess what? There's people that you can pay to do that for you.
There's always a guy when you need a guy, right? He's up your wallet, but he's there.
Yeah. So every vacuum will be filled, right? And so there are definitely people out there that you can pay to do the recruiting game for you, without a doubt.
All right. So now, I don't know if you're familiar, but if you met Jay Wright, and I think Jay Wright, besides being a great basketball coach, is known as being the best dressed coach in the land. And we are about to transition to our fashion segment of the show. And of course, we're going to start with Jay Wright. So tell me what you think of this outfit that Mr. Wright is wearing here right now. You should be looking at it. Hopefully you're seeing him in his double-breasted vest and a checkered suit jacket with a tie. Any thoughts on the way he's purporting himself as the best-dressed coach across the land?
Well, listen, Obi, I first of all, I just want to say that when I ran into him, it was probably 10:30 on a Friday night in Glens Falls, New York, in the I forget the name of the arena, but the fact of the matter, Glens Falls Arena, he was not dressed like that. Let's just put it that way. He was wearing a Hofstra pullover. He's still coaching at Hofstra, but he did not look like that. But yeah, he clearly, come on, he's the best dressed coach. But interestingly enough, with COVID, nobody dresses up anymore.
No.
College basketball coaches aren't dressing up. Even him, he's wearing pullovers to games.
Not at all. But we are going to talk about a few more of his outfits just to put you on the spot. How you like this? This is as much as I like that double-breasted jacket, vest. I'm sorry, I love all the patterns he's pulling off here. Your thoughts on his attire now?
Well, listen, how can you look at that and not go, wow, those stripes are really slimming? I think the pinstripes really make him look a little more svelte than he probably is, and that's probably a look I should go with these days.
All right. And then the last Jay Wright outfit I have for you, which you mentioned, is what we're wearing in the COVID days. But even he has found a way, or I shouldn't say even he, especially he, has found a way to look good with his double collar, very classic outfit. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if he's wearing the Coaches versus Cancer sneakers with that outfit.
That's a great question. We're going to switch up from Jay Wright to the farthest end of coaching dressing, none other than the great Bill Belichick.
You got him dressed up nice there. I mean, where's the cut up hoodie that he usually wears?
See, this is just proof that when you have his kind of money and you want to buy a nice jacket, you can. It's a beautiful jacket on him, and he even threw in a little pattern with his ties.
Yeah, the tie looks like a mistake there, Obi.
Here we have Bill in a golf shirt. He's got the stylish inner golfers on the lapel and a nice black jacket. Thoughts here?
It's kind of what I look like after a golf outing that requires a jacket at the dinner,
Yes. Just throw it on over the sweaty shirt.
Just throw the jacket on so you can get in for the open bar. Yep.
That's right. And now Bill Belichick at his absolute best.
Oh, there we go.
Absolutely. When I noticed it's the picture you were expecting, literally wearing a rag. He is telling people, and his clothes are telling people, do not talk to me. Leave me alone. I got work to do.
The best is that's like a Florida man mugshot,
Yes. Yes, exactly what it is. All right. This show can be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. Please check out Spanglish World CA for all the news and programming. Spanglish World Sports World, watch it, hear it, read it, download it live. Ed, you have admitted to me of being a craft beer snob. I was half expecting you to come up here with a top knot in your head.
I got the beard though. Come on.
Yes, you're rocking that. But in all seriousness, this is now the part of the show where we're going to move on to drinking a little scotch. Hopefully you're able to get what we're drinking. We're going to start with Dewar's. This is a Dewar's White Label, is a classic scotch found in every father's liquor cabinet for the last 40 years. And
look, we got the same bottle, I think.
That's right, the little 50 milliliter. This one was easy. So we're going to go ahead and give this one a whirl. This is supposed to be a pretty peaty scotch. That's what keeps it famous. Now, since I know you're a beer drinker, we like to give it a little sniff and a spin like we're wine drinkers, and then just put a little in our mouth, swish it around, and taste it up. Am I winning you over? Am I taking you away from your beer ways with the Dewar's?
Nah, I don't think so.
That's fair enough. Before we move to our next scotch, one of the things you sent me was you You had a good year in 1996. You were young. You were at the World Series. You're at the Olympics. What can you tell me about that year?
I was playing on a softball team with a bunch of guys. Hey, I mean, come on. What more could you do in 1996?
Not much. Not much. No, I do recall you mentioning going to the Olympics back then. Yeah. And the Yankees are your favorite team, so that helps a lot.
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, I think I said to you that the most memorable sporting event I ever was at was when the Yankees won Game 6 of the 1996 World Series. I mean, being in the stadium that night, that was probably the pinnacle of being a sports fan, as being a Yankee fan. But if you really look at the overall kind of the coolness factor, it was going to the Atlanta Olympics. The interesting thing about that is we went the second week. I went with a couple of buddies and we drove down, and we were actually driving down to Atlanta overnight. And all of a sudden on the radio comes that there was a bombing at the Olympics at the Centennial Park. And it was just really surreal because we were so excited about going and partaking in that party that was happening all week at Centennial Park. And now there's this bombing. And what does that mean? Does that mean the Olympics are going to be canceled? And we had no way of knowing, and then fast forward to 9/11 and all the security measures that come from that. But I'll tell you, Centennial Park was closed for 2-3 days, and then they reopened it. But they reopened it with Border Patrol. They brought in Border Patrol guard, and this was the precursor to post 9/11 security. There were bag checks at every entry point, and they were going through everything. There's metal detectors, and that's how you got into Centennial Park. Now, of course, I felt extremely safe, but at the time, I had no idea that this is the world we were going to live in. A few short years later. But I think, Obi, the best thing about the Olympics was I'll never forget. We went to a bunch of baseball games. We didn't have any of the high price tickets, no Dream Team or anything like that. But I'll never forget walking a guy walk down the street with a cardboard sign around his neck that said, "We'll pay cash for ping pong tickets." So this guy, I mean, that's an Olympic sport, table tennis, and this guy was begging for table tennis tickets. I mean, when do you see that?
No, never. But if that's the sport you love, then of course you're going to get there, right? And so somebody sold it to them because they were like, well, okay, I guess I'll miss out on ping pong.
Well, yes, and also, Obi, the way they sold Olympic tickets is you kind of got them in blocks. So you got stuff that you didn't necessarily want. Let's just put it that way, right? So like we had team handball tickets, and we had women's volleyball tickets, which weren't, we went for the spectacle of it. So if I had ping pong tickets, you damn right I would have sold them to this guy.
Absolutely. Now, we're going to hold off on talking Yankees for a little bit. How are you feeling about Schiano in his first year back for your Rutgers Scarlet Knights?
Well, I mean, just look over my shoulder there. I mean, obviously, I'm a devotee to the Scarlet Knights. I was a big proponent of bringing Schiano back. I mean, if you're into Rutgers football and Rutgers athletics, you know that there was a little bit of a divide in the fan base after Chris Ash was let go on whether Schiano was the guy, and I think what it was is the older fans, like, unfortunately, I'm an older fan these days. We saw what Schiano did for the team. And, listen, Obi, when we were at Rutgers, they had nothing going, right? And so what we lived through, and even people older than us, what they lived through, and you saw what Schiano was able to do, that the guy's a miracle worker, right? So, of course, you want him back. And then you have a younger generation who maybe only heard about Schiano or only saw the last couple of years, and they kind of think you can go out and get a Jim Harbaugh or whatever, right? Come to Rutgers and turn it around. And so there was this divide. And so I was on Team Schiano, absolutely. And so and then when the deal fell apart, I was apoplectic. I think I was gonna, I don't know. I think I probably tried to throw all that stuff out, and I had to go out in the garbage and get it back when they hired him back. So no, I'm on the Schiano train without a doubt. I had season tickets for 20 some years until Ash ruined my spirit, and I had to give them up because of him. That's the only reason. And so really considering going back to get the tickets, just to support the team. So no, I'm really excited about what they're going to bring to the table.
As you should be. I mean, the fact that Rutgers is not a powerhouse with the level of football that is played in the state of New Jersey is absolutely insane. I remember a few years back, I was watching a football game, a high school football game, New Jersey All Stars versus the rest of the nation's All Stars, and that New Jersey team went out and won. Um, it's not a Super Bowl team that doesn't have a kid from New Jersey on it. It's just it is. We are jam packed with football because we don't have warm weather sports, so we play football, and that is it. And Shiano was able to get great kids out of New Jersey, including Rice. And if he can do that again, there's no reason for the Scarlet Knights football team to be bad. And the basketball team, same thing, and looking like an 8 seed right now. That's exciting.
Well, that might be more exciting only because we had a little taste, 15 years ago with Shano's Rutgers team. Actually, even go back to 2012 for Rutgers football, we were ranked 15th at one point. I think we were 6 or 7-0. Gary Nova was, sophomore, 15 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, and then the wheels fall. I think he threw 5 interceptions in the next game after that. But yeah, basketball. Listen, Obi, my freshman year at Rutgers, which was before you were still in high school at this time, was the last time Rutgers made the tournament, right? So my freshman year, I have season tickets. I go to all the home games. We go to the tournament. I think that's what being a Rutgers basketball fan is, right? You go to the tournament every year. That's what Rutgers basketball is. At the time, it was 2 out of the last 3 years, right? So this is what we do.
Yeah. I remember
nothing.
I remember coming in thinking, in my 4 years there, Rutgers was going to win a national championship in soccer and get to the Final Four. Like those are what in basketball. That's what we believed. And who was the quarterback that they grabbed from Miami that they had when I was a freshman?
Brian Forte.
Yes. Even the football team was going to be special. But the highlight of the football team in the 4 years I was there was going to Giant Stadium to watch Penn State beat us. That was usually the best game of the year just because it was there.
Yeah, and let's face it, the highlight of the basketball team was when we had the sit-in at the halftime of against UMass, when UMass was number 1 and Marcus Camby was in town in Calipari. And if you recall, the university president said some disparaging remarks around standardized test scores for African Americans. And there was a protest. They went and sat at the court halftime, and they had to cancel the game because the kids wouldn't get off the court.
I recall. Let's move on to the Glenn Fittich 12, if you were able to get that.
Yeah, so here's where the surprise comes in, Obi.
Yeah.
And I think it's really fitting that we were just talking Rutgers sports. So here's the thing. I didn't realize your show was so bougie, right? So I go to the liquor store today to pick up my supplies. And are you freaking kidding me? $90 for a bottle of scotch?
I apologize. I did not realize that Glenn Fittich 12 was a $90 bottle still.
Well, first of all, I went to 3 liquor stores, unfortunately, and only one had it, and it was a big freaking bottle,
okay.
And it was $90. And so here's the deal: we're all dealing with COVID right now, and I would rather put the resources to a charity at this point than buying a bottle of scotch, taking one sip of it, and then have it sit on my shelf for forever until my kids drink it. Actually, when I'm not paying attention. So what I did instead, because like I said, I didn't realize we were that bougie. I decided just to go with a theme here. We were just talking Rutgers sports, and we talked about how we met. So here's what we're doing, Obi, for my drink. We got the red Solo cup. We got the Coke. It's diet because I'm a little older. And we're going to go with Jack.
That works just fine, sir. Just fine. Absolutely.
So I figure we'll take it old school. We'll go back to our college days for this one. If that works for you, Obi.
Absolutely works for me.
So remember I told you that when I first told you we shouldn't do Jack because I get in trouble with Jack.
You did say that because that was the first.
Yeah. So back when I was younger and we were on the wedding circuit, you could really get your money's worth at an open bar if you went with a lot of Jack and Coke, right? So
yes.
My wife for a while banned me from drinking Jack and Coke. Let's just put it that way.
Well, she probably had good reason, but to Jack and Cokes. Oh, wow. See, this is the problem with this being $90. Is had you tried this beautiful fruity flavor would have made you go, I can drink scotch. Instead, you're stuck with a 50 milliliter bottle of Dewar's that you're going to toss while you drink your Jack and Coke, but that's okay.
You know, Obi, I think it's called a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, that's okay. You mentioned 2012 a little bit ago. Tell us about being the 2012 Rutgers Miller Lite tailgating champion.
Yeah, I told you I was a big fan, right? I was going to all the games. So we had a crew that we had about 20 people, 20 tickets in this crew. And we got to the point where we would just start planning out our tailgates. And originally it started off in 2006 with that first magical season. It was just about planning out, who's bringing what food, right? The normal tailgating stuff. Then we got one of the guys on the team who Stump. Yeah. He became the creative director, and we started having themes to our tailgates, and we got noticed by some of the development folks for Rutgers. Now, the whole Miller Lite tailgating contest is also a ruse to get donors. That's all right. So they come by, tell you you're a great tailgater. Next thing you know, they're asking you for this huge donation. It's kind of funny how it all works out, right? But so we set this up, and what they did was they came up with one winner a week for the first 6 weeks. I believe there's 7 home games that season. And on the last game of the season, which turned out to be the de facto Big East championship game, was a Thursday night game against Louisville. Teddy Bridgewater came in and he had like a broken wrist or something and still won the game. And they went to the Sugar Bowl, I believe, and they stole our bid from us. But that was the championship. So the 6 winners up to that, we competed, and the development staff went from tailgate to tailgate. And we had this whole Christmas spread set up. So we brought a fake, we obviously had the generator. We brought a fake Christmas tree, lit it. We brought living room chairs. We set up a living room scene. We had wrapped presents under it. And of course, we had some great food, and we ended up winning. So it's not just about the food and the booze. Sometimes you got to have some thematic creativity.
Well, I mean, I've seen what you and your brother do on Christmas. So if you were doing a Christmas tailgate, that must have been something to look at for sure.
And Rutgers never got the donation either, and we got the championship, so it all worked out.
Oh, that's well, now that my kid's there, I wish you had donated.
Well, they played their cards wrong, Obi. They went for a $36,000 donation. A little steep.
That's a lot steep. That is a lot steep. Convince me that your New York Yankees are going to win the American League this year.
Well, isn't that their birthright? I mean, come on.
That's about the only reason I can imagine that they're going to win it this year, is that it's their birthright.
Well, to win I think, Obi, it all depends on are we talking about winning the number 1 seed for the playoffs, or actually winning the pennant to go to the World Series, right? Because in baseball these days, with the extended playoffs, it's really 2 different seasons. More so than ever. I mean, now that I think they're going with the extra playoff team again this year too, right?
I think they're going 7 teams each side, yes.
Right. So that makes it even harder to get to the World Series. And then it becomes all about your pitching staff, right? And so you got to go through the 154 games I think they're going to do this year, gauntlet, right? So the Yanks are built for that, right? Their lineup is built for that. Their pitching staff, their bullpen is built for that. And so they're going to win 100 games, right? So I think they're going to probably have the best record, if not the second best record in the American League. But then you get to the playoffs, and which of your starters are healthy, right? Because nowadays it's tough to keep 5 guys healthy, right? Without getting Tommy John or something, right? And then, is your bullpen, and we've seen in past years, you get there and all of a sudden, somebody like an Ottavino or somebody decides not to have a great playoff series, and boom, you're gone. Or Chapman decides to become mortal, right? And again, as a Yankee fan, completely spoiled with Mariano Rivera, right? We didn't know what it was like to blow a save, really, in the playoffs, and then Chapman does it every other year. So I don't know if I'm convincing you, Obi, but we are built. The Yankees are built to be a great regular season team.
And I think that's a very fair argument for why your team's going to win the American League and ignoring the playoffs, because it's always surprising to me when you start to look in the numbers how much of a crapshoot baseball playoffs are. They really are. I was shocked to find out they're more random than even hockey playoffs. Now, basketball, we know right now we could both guess within 3 chances of who's going to be in the finals from each side. You know, there's only 6 teams that can do it, so it's pretty easy. But baseball, like you said, being the number 1 seed and winning the pennant are 2 completely different things. Once any team gets in there, and the expanded playoffs, although good for the dollars and fun to watch, really waters down that championship.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think pitching is such a premium these days. Keeping your starters healthy, it just makes it difficult. It's almost like you need to remember. I don't know. It seems like a long time ago. Remember when Clemens and Pettit both came back? Not the same season, but they came back late in the year to out of retirement. It's almost like that's what you need to do with your stud pitchers these days. Let them show up in August so that they're healthy in October.
You know, there's some, and that was one of the whole, I remember it more with Clemens than with Pettit. That was a big deal they were making about it, that he's going, there's no question about it. If he's healthy, he should be healthy, and he is going to peak in the playoffs when they need him. He's going to be Roger Clemens in the playoffs, not the Clemens that everyone used to know from the playoffs.
Yeah. So I think that's the key with baseball. But somehow, look at the Dodgers last couple of years. I mean, they finally got over the hump. But they're the best team in baseball, right, for a number of years, and they couldn't win the World Series. It's tough. Run into a buzzsaw, run into 2 hot pitchers. What are you going to do?
Right, and have your one pitcher slow down. Right, Kershaw couldn't pitch in the playoffs, and that's 1 loss, and then they run into somebody else who had a win, and you see it now. Now they're going like, we need to go 6 deep at starters. We need to be able to do that. And then, or you can play like the Marlins and be like, our starting pitching is irrelevant because we're going to throw 9 relievers at you.
Yeah, right. And again, are those relievers all going to be hot? Because that's the one problem, right, with the new baseball rules of not rules. Or I should just say the book that every manager uses is where you're throwing 5 bullpen arms a game. Is all 5 of them have to be on. If one of them isn't on, your whole plan is just screwed in the 7th or the 8th inning. And so it just, I don't know. Listen, it's analytics. There's a lot of data behind it. Who am I to argue with it? But I just think that people are trying to be, too perfect these days.
I think that's a great way of describing what's going on in baseball. Is the goal, the goal to perfection is too great to make the game enjoyable. And you see it in MMA a lot, where sometimes the best fighter in the UFC, they stop giving him fights because it's just too boring. And baseball is kind of doing that to itself with its efficiency, with its pitching, and its efficiency with its shift, and its efficiency in everything it's doing. Its efficiency in hitting home runs and not hitting doubles anymore. It's creating a game that people are like, I got to slog through this. Maybe a 7-inning game isn't such a bad idea, or maybe start with the guy on second the minute the 10th starts, because I don't want to have to keep watching this, because as the hitters are getting better at doing one thing and the pitchers are getting better at doing one thing, the game itself is not getting better.
Yeah, and Obi, I'll just expand upon that. What about the swing and miss, right? So home run hitters, right? Again, the analytics say swing as hard as you can, because we're still take the 50 home runs and 200 strikeouts over the 30 home runs and 150 strikeouts, and you're not going to get a hit anyway. So you might as well swing for the fences. I mean, I don't know, just staggering. People are just 2 strike counts, swing for the fences.
Rice is like, wait, why couldn't I play now?
Yeah. Or Rob Deere.
Yes, right. I mean, everyone is Adam Dunn.
Yes.
Now it's just, it is interesting that, apparently I was a lot better at baseball than I thought I was for all those swing and misses I was doing in the league.
You're ahead of your time. You're swinging for the fences. That choking up on 2 strikes is overrated. I always said that to the coach. It's overrated, coach.
Yeah. An out's an out.
Yeah.
And now walks a good thing now. So it's all a strange game when you look at it from what it was like 30 years ago.
Absolutely. Right, because they don't even really care about batting average, right? It's OPS now. It's all that matters. OPS.
It's all OPS. When people are putting those numbers out there, it's OPS. Like, why even put the other 2 in there? Why put batting average? It's not.
Well, because old guys like us, right? So we're having this. Right now we're having this get off my lawn moment, right?
Right. Yeah. we are. Except I don't feel like we're having to get off this lawn moment with what we're saying, because I feel like what we're saying is you're trying to keep the game the way we like it, and we're going, but it changed too much, and the young people aren't liking it either. I mean, that's the real issue.
That's a great point, because if the young people were liking the way it's going, you're right, then we are having that get off our lawn moment, but they're not even watching the game.
No, I know. My kids are not big sports fans, so therefore their friends are not big sports fans. But those of them who like sports are not liking baseball. There's no one going, yes, Mr. Schottenfeld, the one sport I do enjoy is baseball. It's hockey, it's football, it's MMA, and then of course aren't esports a sport?
Absolutely. So I'll tell you, Obi, and I know we're running out of time here, but esports, and I know you talked about it in your monologue, right? Esports is the Y's getting into this, and here's why. It's really interesting. I'm learning more about it, but it's not. There aren't necessarily these safe places for kids to do esports, right? They're doing them online. You don't know who they're doing them online with, right? So maybe parents aren't allowing them. But if the Y or some other organization, but I work for the Y, so I'm gonna brag about the Y. If the Y could come together and convene a safe space for kids to compete in esports and bring some character value into it, and maybe even some exercise, right? So you come, you sign up, you're in this tournament, and part of it's 15 minutes of exercise. I don't know, whatever, right? We'll figure that out. But I think parents would say, wow, that's great. It's an outlet for my kid. They can grow life skills, something they love, and it's going to be safe. So the Y is getting into esports. Pretty cool.
That is excellent. I'd like to thank you very much for joining me, Ed. If we have you on again, I'll make sure I send you a few bucks so you can buy your $90 bottle of scotch.
Again, I didn't know it was bougie. It's all right.
It's all right. And join us next week when we have on Adam Douglas, YouTuber. All right. Thanks a lot, everyone. Have a good night.